Morning, all. All right, so news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet as we get into the week where we're going to have training camp. So, a lot of news items on the board today. I would imagine there'll be other full boards for the rest of today and the rest of this week as things really start to ramp up. But the story that is still going, and there's going to be more information coming out today. So, Ryan Whitney and Paul Bissonnette sharing what they've heard from players. And again, we knew that more was going to come out when Babcock stepped down. And yesterday, John Davidson apologizing for all of this. Jarmo Kekalainen apologizing for all of this. Honestly, you could tell more was going to come out. And what's coming out now, and again, there's going to be a Spit and Chicklets episode today, so there's likely going to be more because that's top of the list of what they're going to talk about is Columbus and the Babcock situation. But apparently a lot of these photo incidents, so the idea is he's just grabbing players' phones. He's looking at pictures. Not a big deal. What's the big deal? Apparently some of these incidents took place at his house. And apparently in one instance, he invites a player over for lunch. Player's there. He flips through the guy's photos after taking his phone and then kicks him out and didn't give him lunch. So that's awkward. That's weird. That's odd. And yeah, there was also a story that was shared as well about a player who hadn't quite cracked the NHL, sitting on a bench in Anaheim, and Babcock coming in and saying, "Hey, this is great, isn't it? And soak this up." And then basically said, "Yeah, you got to soak this up because you're never going to sit on an NHL bench again." So that's kind of a Debbie Downer thing to say to a player that's trying to crack the NHL. So yeah, again, these stories are going to come out, and it's going to get more and more difficult for people who want to say, Mike's fine. He's a good guy. It's going to be harder and harder for people to back up that position. Although I know it'll still happen. And one question asked by Ryan Whitney, and I agree with this: what if a player's in the closet? The idea that we've had hockey for decades, over a century, and that there hasn't been a single player that's in the closet, of course, that's impossible. It's impossible. That's not a thing. And I understand why a player wouldn't reveal that information. Totally get it. It's something that's been debated as long as I've watched hockey. I remember with friends of mine, we had that debate one time of if there was a player who was in the closet, who do you think it would be? And again, we had certain towels that we thought might be out there. And so, yeah, I totally understand if a player has something in their life, and that's not the only thing either, that they may not want their coach to know, that it may not be his business. Him flipping through their phone could be a problem. So, yeah, the fact that at his house, I did like, there was one take I saw Jay Fresh saying, all he had to do was just act normal for a few months. That's all he had to do. All he had to do was avoid that kind of thing for a few months, and he couldn't. He just couldn't. So, anyways, we'll see what else comes out, and I'll be here to report on it when it does, and it may very well come out today. All right, moving on to other news of the day for all you fine people on the internet. Starting with Chicago, no team captain for the Blackhawks. There will not be a team captain this year, and that makes some sense. I think the plan is going to be to have Bedard become the captain as soon as they feel he's ready for that job. Similar to what Edmonton did with McDavid. McDavid became captain really young, but I seem to remember Crosby did too in Pittsburgh. It's just what you do with a phenom. You say, you know what, this is our guy. We're building around this player. He's gonna be the face of the franchise, and you make him captain. So the Chicago Blackhawks will not have a captain this season. We'll see how long they run without a captain, but could be for a while. But again, they're in a rebuild, so I don't think it's necessarily a big deal. Looking at the Detroit Red Wings and Edvinsson, who is close, apparently. According to Yzerman, he is close to being cleared for full contact, so that sounds to me like he won't miss any regular season games, and he should be good to go once we get at least partway through training camp in the preseason. And he's saying that Carter Mazur will miss the start of camp, so he got hurt during the rookie tournament. There weren't really any updates, and I haven't seen exactly what the nature of that injury is. But for Mazur, of course, it's a little bit tougher for Mazur to miss the start of training camp than for a veteran, because a veteran probably already has a roster spot locked down. For Mazur, it might make things more difficult if he's coming into camp late. Vancouver, a lot of talk around here about the cap crunch, and I know the cap crunch is a topic in Toronto as well. Vancouver and Toronto both kind of in the same position where they're going to have to make some moves to get under the cap before the season starts. And in Vancouver, it's a matter of, so who do they trade? And the obvious answer would be Myers, but even though Myers just has 1 year left on his contract, for somebody to take that $6 million cap hit, It's going to take something that Canuck fans are probably going to be upset to part with in order to make that work. But yeah, so the cap crunch is there. We'll see which teams are able to get under the cap and which teams are going to have to play with less than a full roster to start the season. If a team does not get under the salary cap, they do not ice a full roster. So you may see 11 forwards and 6 defensemen, or 12 forwards and 5 defensemen. You play shorthanded until you're under the cap. The St. Louis Blues, news today, thus the Blues gear. Braden Schenn's been named team captain. Makes total sense. Thomas, Falk, and Parayko are the alternates. So if you're a Blues fan thinking, so are they gonna trade Parayko? It doesn't sound like it. I wouldn't name him an alternate, at least before the season starts. But yeah, so that's your leadership group in St. Louis, and we'll see how they do with Schenn now as the captain of the team. So Timo Meier has gone back in terms of his numbers. He's gone from 96 back to 28. That's the number he wore in San Jose. He says it's a lucky number for him. And also, if you have a 96 jersey, you get 28% off of a jersey with a 28 on it as well. So, and he's matching 28% as well. That goes towards charity, something along those lines. So anyways, if you get a 28 jersey, and I'm guessing this is just through the Devils team store, and you have a 96 and you get 28% off of your jersey, which is a nice gesture, but it's still pricey. So, but again, in some cases, you can't just change the number because you heat press it down, and once it's glued down, well, there's that. So anyways, for everybody who's got a Meier 96 jersey, don't do that. Don't get the number of a player when they've just arrived on a team, because generally speaking, they will go to a lower number the year after. That seems to happen a lot. And 96, I know when he was wearing that, I thought, man, 96 always reminds me when Bure went from 10 to 96. I don't know that it lasted a full season of Bure wearing 96. He realized right away he shouldn't have changed numbers. Players are superstitious, and you look at what happened with Bure with 96, it wasn't great. And maybe Meier's goal scoring just gets back to where it was in San Jose when he's wearing 28. So anyways, Philadelphia news. Danny Briere confirms that Atkinson and Couturier are healthy. We had heard they would attend camp, but what Briere is saying is they're 100%, they're good to go, they're healthy, and that's great news for Philadelphia, especially Couturier. Couturier is a fantastic two-way forward in the game, one of the best two-way forwards when he's healthy, and now that he's healthy, we'll see what he can do. The Flyers, there's no expectations with the Flyers at all. So with absolutely no pressure, the Flyers could be an interesting team to watch, because again, adding Atkinson and Couturier, who didn't play last year, that's 2 veteran forwards. I would think combined you're looking at, 130 points? If you get 70 from one, 60 from the other, 65 points from both, or even 120 points if you get 60 from both, right? Or 65 and 55. Either way, you're adding 2 forwards who we know can produce, who are decent forwards in the NHL. And for the Flyers, I think that's a solid. Steve Mears, who of course was let go at the TV level for Pittsburgh Penguins games. If you were saying to yourself, well, I'd still like to hear him calling Penguins games, good news for you is that he will be calling the games on the radio. So he's been hired to call the games on the radio, and that's good news for him. As teams get their broadcast crews in order and all that. And it's not on the board, but Florida also announced partnership with their building naming rights and all of that as the Florida Panthers see their stock rise. It's amazing what success on the ice will do for a team's status and visibility in their community. But there you go. Also, Ottawa releasing their 56-man roster for training camp. Shane Pinto is not listed. Not attending camp makes total sense. He is not signed. He's a restricted free agent. So the hope was to get him signed by today. And so not being signed today, he will not be in training camp. And this is when the clock starts. Keep in mind with restricted free agents, the deadline to sign them is December the 1st. So it can go on for a while. We all remember the Nylander situation, how long that went for Toronto. And we'll see what happens with Pinto with the Sens, and whether or not that affects, say, Josh Bailey's tryout. Maybe Josh Bailey is more likely to get a contract because they need a center in the absence of Pinto. But we'll find out soon enough. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.